All right, we're on.
Right back.
Just so you know, this meeting is audio recorded, and Ian's going to send me the link tonight. It's because Dan is somewhere between here and there on the West Coast, and it's only 3:30 in the afternoon. So it looks like Becca is joined too. Great.
Yes, hello.
Hello, Becca.
Hello, Becca.
Thank you for your wonderful banner design.
Oh, no problem. It was fun to make those.
Well, it's going to be made up into a tablecloth type thing, and you'll be famous.
I'm excited to see it.
Good. So what did I do with the agenda? Do you have a copy of the agenda?
I'm sort of in my head, but I don't have it on.
Oh, great. I think I might have brought it.
So the agenda was
I did.
celebrate the RFP,
Do you want?
Yeah,
you want
and then
it?
next steps with
You
RFP
want to
and
print it
planner
out, copy of
selection.
it, Sarah? Here you go.
Yeah, here
Easier
you
to
go.
read. We can follow
There you
it.
go.
Would you like me to take notes? Are we
Sure.
taking notes?
Well, yeah.
Did we last time? I don't know if we did.
Well, I got lost, but I tried. Well, welcome everybody, and in a collective effort, we got the RFP done. The township weighed in, so if you're wondering why the schedule is the way it is and the spacing and everything, that's how the township does it on Penn Bid. So we're sort of, that's the schedule.
I have a question.
Do you have a
So
question?
in the past, we've started the meetings with sort of kind of go-backs, or I guess I have a go-back from an action item from our previous meeting.
Good.
Which was, we were going to try and seek cooperation from the school board to provide their energy usage for their buildings. I was
Right.
just wondering if there was any status or word on that. No?
Unfortunately, no.
Okay.
We really need to find somebody. I know the high schoolers have been invited to a facilities meeting, but they're never, it's not pinned down, we'd like you to come on such and such a date. So I think it's still an action item
Okay.
to be done and should be done. Bob was going to reach out to the superintendent. I will check with him with the where we are, so that at the next meeting we see a way forward.
And I think the reason I ask is we did get information on the township buildings. So at this stage, it would, speaking for myself, it would just be interesting to get order of magnitude comparison between the energy usage for the township buildings and the school buildings, just as a comparison. But that said, assuming the RFP goes forward and we select the contractor that then develops the plan, they would then have the task. So I'm asking in advance of the real need, but
Right.
just want to keep that in front.
Well, and I know that Steve Clark, who is our connection with PICO, is very anxious
Okay.
to do it, but it sounds simple. All he needs is for the school district to say, these are our accounts,
Right.
go ahead.
Yeah, he needs the customer's release to,
Right.
I understand.
That's it, so.
All right, thank you.
Can I
Okay.
ask a question just to kind of contextualize this a little bit? I think Becca would probably be the one that could answer this. How active is the student body, especially at the high school level?
Okay. Yeah, so Allie and I are co-presidents of a club called Action Earth. We have about 40 active participants, but we have usually been getting even more people involved if we're doing fundraisers, because there are easy ways to kind of tell the school what's going on. So we would probably have about 50 or more people.
Excuse me, Becca,
Yeah.
do you have is there a member of faculty administration that acts as an advisor for your team, or do you have a focal in the either
Yeah,
teacher or administration?
We have a biology teacher, Mrs. Strazo.
Okay.
She's a sponsor for our team, and we can also easily talk to people in administration.
Okay. So maybe the advisor for the group could be an advocate in, working from the inside to solicit the data.
Yeah, definitely.
Becca, would it help if you and Allie or whoever, and say Robin and I had a meeting with that biology teacher to explain more fully what we're, to support you in explaining what we're doing as Ready for 100, which might ease the rails a little bit so we can get to the facilities committee that then goes to the full board to instruct hopefully instruct the superintendent to give us the PICO account so the work can be done? Would that help after school started?
Yeah, we definitely set that up.
And can we throw in the school nurse? Because they're probably seeing some heat-related effects, more asthma attacks, and those sort of things. And so we can quantify it a little bit.
Yeah, that's a great idea. So we can set up a meeting with the school nurse, Mrs. Trazo, Allie and I, and Sarah and Robin.
Okay, and if you want me to, I would be happy to help her see that.
Yeah, that's great.
But it would have to be like after Labor Day. Well, that would make sense anyway, because that's when school's back in session. Okay.
Yeah, sounds great.
Is that okay, Mark?
That's that's fantastic, yeah.
All right. Well, it's lovely to have Becca and Allie back in town. Allie's been in Europe and she sent me quite an email today, which I will send of what she observed in Germany as far as they're biking, they're riding public transportation, things are in glass, there's no plastic. I mean, Germany is way ahead of us.
Yeah, last summer I was lucky enough to go to Scotland and they get 70% of their nation's energy from renewable.
Oh, Europe's so ahead of us, it's
Yeah.
embarrassing.
Germany has these nice paved bike paths that are separate from the road,
Right.
so that you're not
Nice
in
and safe,
fear
so
of your life.
everybody can ride them,
Yeah.
even grandma, yeah.
Safely.
But anyway, that's a whole nother meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have the
The RFP?
RFP and the planner's selection. So some of this, if you're wondering, the way it was set is because this is how the township does it on Penn Bid. And it's going to be interesting to see how many other townships, counties do this. Because what I'm getting, what is Penn Bid from the leaders in other counties? I think we may be the only township that's Ready for 100 that does use this. So we had to meld ourselves into their guidelines. So it goes live August 1st. That's
2 days.
Soon.
2 days. And there's this pre-proposal meeting the 28th of August at 10 o'clock in the morning. It's at 10 o'clock in the morning because that's when the township does it. As I understand it from Steve, it's anyone who's interested in becoming the energy expert who can come in with any questions they want to ask.
So in our language, we would call it like a bidders conference. Anybody who is thinking of bidding would show up and
Right.
ask questions.
Right. So Steve will be there. There'll be a point person from this committee, although everybody can sit in. And the answers that have to go up on Penn Bid, which is the closing date of the questions, is the 9th of September. That's what the questions the people have asked or we've elicited from them. All that becomes public information on Penn Bid, the 9th of September and then the 16th of September.
Can I just get
Yeah.
clear, are you saying that Steve will also be on point for the written questions that come?
Yes. No, they're oral questions. It's an oral.
It's an oral meeting, but aren't there also questions that will come?
I
You
It
want
looks like,
could
yeah.
questions be submitted in writing, you're saying?
Yeah, that's what I was
That's
asking.
what I'm not
Okay.
100%
All right.
clear of. I think I got the impression from Steve that they want to see the people's faces. So after all the wonderful responses we get, our work is to create a spreadsheet with possible 1, 2, 3, 4, let's say 5, and look at years of business, size of staff, cost, and try and come up with a table so when the interviews happen, it's apples to apples. And Steve likes it done that way, and you rank them, you give them points, and then so that you really come to consensus.
Selection criteria.
Yes.
Well, and we, I meant to look them up today, but didn't get a chance. We can refer to the selection criteria that Westchester used to the extent those are useful.
Yes.
That's the starting point.
Yeah, I would think we would go through the essential elements of the plan and just identify each one, and then
Right,
they have it or they don't have it, and then 1 to 5 on the quality of it.
right, right. And I know one of Steve's concerns is to look at the depth of the organization
Mhm.
that responds. They don't want it so shallow that it takes forever. Because yes, it's September, and then there's Thanksgiving, and then there's Christmas, and then there's snow. But the key date, the final report is due in February. Because our goal is Earth Day. And it's gonna take a while because after they get all the data and work with us, then they have to write a report. A full report. So, are there any questions with that? So, one of the things we need, and we know we've got Dan somewhere and Ruth is here and the girls are not, is to either have a volunteer who says I'll be the point person, or select someone before the 28th of August who will be the point person to be with Steve. And that doesn't mean that the rest of us, those of us who are interested and are available, can't sit in and get some impression. Of course, the big step is we hope we get a response. But, so just be thinking about that.
Well, we should probably see if people are gonna be around.
Yes.
And if one or more people can attend that meeting.
Which leads to a side question. People's vacation availability between now and Labor Day. So Ruth, you're going to someplace.
To Scotland on the 6th, and we'll be back on the 18th of August.
Mary, you're going to England.
Yeah, that's the 3rd to the 17th.
Rich Isles.
Katrina's been away.
And
You're
I'm
gonna go
going
away
again
again?
on the 11th and returning on the 17th.
Wow.
Everybody's coming back that weekend.
Mark, you get away?
I did take vacation since our last meeting, but I will be on business travel 5th through the 8th, but otherwise should be around through the end of summer.
Robin?
I'll be leaving the 11th, back the 30th.
Okay. Ruth, when do you return from the vineyard?
I'm actually going to shut off my computer because I've been working up here. I've got 3 publications out and a bunch of stuff, but I'm going to shut off my computer from August 9th to the 24th, and then I come back.
Okay. Because college starts just about then, doesn't it?
26th. I'm coming back at the last minute.
Well, if you're at all interested, there are great big boxes outside the new dorms and students carrying stuff in. So I suspect beds and bureaus and tables and desks are being loaded into the new dorms.
Oh, oh, wow. Oh, that's exciting.
Yes. All right, I'm not going anywhere.
Well, so it sounds like we won't have a problem with populating the August 28th meeting.
Right, and that's good to know. All right, and I'm gonna request of Steve that we try to have another meeting with him to have him describe it, tell us what he wants us to keep our, I just think it might be good orientation, so we know what's expected of us.
What, I'm sorry, what is the schedule? Is it all day, or is it, what window of time is it?
It starts at 10 o'clock in the morning.
So, I'm definitely interested in attending, and I'm even open to being the point person, but I gotta double check my work schedule, and I don't have my work phone with me on it.
But this wouldn't be sort of blind with people coming in sequentially. They would all just come into a room.
They're all
and
in,
ask
Right.
it's
questions.
probably in
So-
this room, and they're all here and they're listening to each other, and
So it wouldn't take all day, it'd be
no,
a couple
no,
hours.
I think it's a
at most,
couple
right?
hours. Okay.
I could probably come 2 in the morning, but I would have to leave by noon.
Okay.
Now, we don't have to have the selection criteria done by then.
No.
We have to have the selection criteria done by,
Well, it
When?
comes back the 16th, all their things are due by noon.
all the proposals are due.
All the proposals are due, and then we'll print them off, and a couple of us will get together and create this spreadsheet.
Okay. Well, even
Well,
in
we
advance
should
of that,
probably
between
get-
now and then, we should be thinking about
Right,
what the criteria are.
right.
Yeah.
And they're really, my idea is they're sort of the deliverables.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
So, Robin, anything?
No, I mean, I think there's some things that, like you mentioned, that will be, sort of key criteria, like the depth and experience of the firm,
Yeah.
kind of thing. I'm not sure. And we certainly want a firm that has some capacity to engage with the public. They're not just going to be data people. So then we also need to figure out who can be, we probably won't want to have all of us, or the green team won't want to have all of you be part of the interviews. That might be a little bit of a mob for bidders. So
Right.
we probably need sort of a subset to do the interviews.
I know that Dan will be back.
I mean, maybe that's a question for discussion, I don't
Yeah,
know. but,
about Dan's returning the 12th, I think, of August, so we'll be in good shape.
I just think it'll be helpful if the same people interview each of the,
I agree with that.
Oh,
It
I
should be
agree.
the same,
Oh.
whoever they are, the same panel.
Yeah.
Totally.
Absolutely, for consistency.
So we don't know when those will be scheduled. They'll be scheduled sometime between September
After September
16th and October 21st.
Yes.
Probably
and-
closer to September 16th.
Yes.
Will the township eliminate any people? Will they?
Steve may eliminate some people.
Okay.
I mean, this is definitely, this part of it is definitely a cooperation between
Mhm.
administration and the team till we get this, because we have to do it within their guidelines. And they do it through Penn Bid because it's totally transparent. It's nobody's brother-in-law. There's no inside track. And so in line with that, it's been requested that by the Montgomery County group, well, let me back up a little bit. Heretofore, any documents that we who are part of Ready for 100 in Southeast Pennsylvania have posted them up on the Google Docs website so that nobody's having to totally reinvent the wheel.
Right.
So we've been asked by both Chester County and Montgomery County for permission to upload our RFP after Thursday to the site. Now, that led to a question because Constellation, who provides the electric energy for a lot of townships, they do for this township, I know they do for Haverford Township, they are very interested in responding to the RFP. So I wrote Steve and asked, well, can someone come in sideways? Absolutely not, said he. And because this is what happens, it doesn't cost anything to be on pen bid, to be looking. You pay a percentage of the contract to pen bid so it can operate.
If you're awarded the contract.
If you're awarded the contract. So, Robin and I felt, because it's your RFP, to at least run by you, is it all right to put it up on Montgomery County's and Chester County's Google Docs sites so they can see how we've done ours?
I think definitely.
My opinion is yes. We leveraged another
Yeah.
township's document, so we
Right.
kind of.
We're all in this together.
It's a sharing.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And I will advise Steve Clark from Haverford Township. Township is the one who.
Oh. Are the people online okay with that too?
Yeah. Are you, Ruth? Is that okay?
Yes, that's fine.
And Becca?
And Becca? I don't know whether Becca's there.
Oh, she's getting.
It's being kind of glitchy for me, but.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, you've done us the wonderful thing of the banner design, which the township is building for us. I think it could be beneficial, but I will tell Steve Clark that although Constellation is interested, they're gonna have to come
Have to
into
go
it
through the front door.
through the
Yeah.
front door, and I actually have a PowerPoint that Steve sent me about Constellation. So I will circulate that so we can not make a decision, but we can see what they're talking about. It may or may not be very helpful to see what somebody offers.
Right.
I find it interesting, the township does not have a contract with Constellation. The Board of Commissioners would not commit to 2 years' price. So they're paying a different price every month,
Wow.
which is just a foible of the township. Whatever. Okay, let's.
Well, so, I mean, just to close that topic, I guess the Green Team will need to decide, how many should be part of an interview process, and, who can sort of carve out the time. And I don't know how that scheduling would work, but it would be, I imagine it would be helpful if the interviews were sort of concentrated in a, window of time, so that
Right,
there's some
yeah.
continuity.
So what are you looking at in time? I mean, what's the possibility of?
Well, I think we have to, it'll probably be done during the work hours of the township,
Yeah.
between 8 and 4,
Yeah.
and depending on how many responses we get, we'll ask Steve, who will be doing the scheduling, to try and do
Mhm.
them pretty much back to back.
As soon as we get the bids.
After we get them and
60.
have time to
Go through.
go through them and set up our criteria.
Well, we-
What's reasonable per interview, an hour?
I don't
2
know.
hours?
That's a question to
Certainly
ask
no more than
Steve.
an hour.
Yeah, I would think
When
an
we do
hour.
interviews, they're like,
That's what I'm
30
thinking.
minutes.
I'm thinking like job
Depends on-
interviews usually
Yeah.
30 to an hour.
Well,
So
this
I
is,
think we'd be blessed to have 6 or so proposals, so it's not gonna
Yes.
take forever.
no,
yeah, I'm just trying to scope it in my mind.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I just attended the interviews for the architect for the Willows Mansion,
Okay.
15 minutes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh my God.
They had to really be focused in. It really
Double
helped
it. Give them
them.
30 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think 30 sounds right.
Yep.
Well, so I am available for the pre-proposal meeting, so,
Right.
we can decide at a later time who would be the point person, but I am available for that.
And Sarah, when do you anticipate these interviews?
Well, I would guess, we want to take, we have to back up. We're hoping to take it to the Board of Commissioners on the 21st of October.
Okay.
Because they're the ones who say yes
Mhm.
or no.
So the flow is, we're gonna put out an RFP, we'll get responses, interview and down select, decide who we think we would love to award to, we'll then have a price.
Right, and then we go to the Board of
Or a
Commissioners.
cost, yeah, okay.
And so it, the 21st of October back towards, probably, I would guess the interviews would probably be the last week in September or the first week in October.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm, okay.
And, you know, this is all new to me, and it's pretty new to all of us. So part of that issue is to come up with some sort of a budget allocation to ask the commissioners for. And what we need, why we need it, sort of a justification of why we're asking this for this money, which will be presented the 21st of October, and we will definitely use the 250 people who are in our database
Yeah.
to write them a letter and say, in effect, fanny in the seats.
So each proposal, they're gonna have their proposed cost, right?
Yeah,
So we'll have numbers from each.
yes.
So the basis of going to the commissioners, that'll give us a base number, and then probably add some percentage over that for risk, like if, in case scope grows or
Overruns and stuff.
10 to 15%, I don't know.
Whatever,
percent.
there's probably a standard.
Yeah, there's probably a standard.
Right.
So that's the ask it.
Right.
But I'm expecting we would need to put a placeholder in the proposed budget before the end of September, right? Yes. So I think we were advised to aim for like 25,000 as a rough approximation, because we can't wait until.
I apologize, I think we've said in this meeting before, do we know ballpark what Westchester paid?
Well, they had,
I think it was 60, wasn't it?
they had 7 entities,
Okay.
and I think it was, so they
And it was
had
based part of
7
the population.
entities. So I think theirs was about 70.
Yeah, 60 or 70 in there. we can find out.
And Haverford Township was asking for 25 of their commissioners.
Okay, so somewhere in between there is, probably closer to 25 then.
Yes.
Did Haverford get 25?
I need to ask Steve about that.
I would suggest if we have to give them a number to sort of prepare the ground for, that we put in a ROM,
Right. Go up a
that is,
little higher.
that is up a little higher, because we don't know where the bidders will come in.
No, we're sort of flying blind a little bit.
Well,
So you're suggesting that we have a number?
well, if we have to float them a number before we go formal in October, just for planning purposes, I would, this is a notional number. This is what it will cost. I would say if we're between 25 and 75, I'd say go based on other, in the region, 35.
And one of the justifications, because I've been thinking about this, is we put in a placeholder of X. And if the expert comes in at less,
Right.
then those funds are applied to begin the remediation of this building. Begins to buy LED bulbs. So Ruth, why don't you tell us about St. David's Park? Because I have told Bob about this.
So this was several years ago, and we replaced all of our outside bulbs. Now we have, depending on how you call them buildings, we have 37 buildings. So those all have outdoor lights at the entryway, and then we have some around the property. So we did get a grant from PICO, and they gave us $4,000 to replace all of our light bulbs with LED bulbs.
Who lives in the St. David condos?
Yeah.
Oh, I hope I'm a good neighbor. I'll let you get it.
So, at any rate, I asked my husband if he could go back in the records and see what our savings was, and he didn't have that information, and unfortunately we've changed management companies, so I don't know that we can easily get it. But he did say that a couple of things. First of all, this was early in LED bulb history, and one of the big problems we had was that people were stealing them. Because you remember they were quite expensive when they first came out. So
Like going up the pole and unscrewing them?
well, mostly outside of the doorways, so
Oh,
you can
that's
just
unbelievable.
reach up.
Oh,
You know,
wow.
it's not. Yeah, I
Especially
mean,
in this town.
and the poles aren't that high. I mean, we're talking about maybe 8 feet high, but so they were stealing them.
Wow.
And then the other thing is that one of the duties of our maintenance man at that time was to walk the grounds once a week and see what light bulbs needed to be replaced. Our maintenance man doesn't do that anymore.
Sure.
Because our bulbs don't need to be replaced, so,
So just a concern I have is just the order of things. So I would be concerned about spending or allotting money for the plan before the contractor that we hire develops the plan. But if we could put, I don't know what the budget policy is, if money allocated this October has to be spent this year or not. But if it
No,
can,
it's
if
for
it can
20.
carry over, then yeah, I'd be all for anything we don't spend on the plan goes towards an account for implementing.
Right. So what I did hear you say that the bulbs cost you $10,000, but you were able to reduce it by $4,000 with the grant from PICO.
I don't think I had a number of what the
Oh, I
bulbs
thought
cost.
you did. But the cost has come down dramatically.
Yes, it
I'm
has.
encouraging Bob every time I write him or talk to him to be working through PICO. When they changed the bulbs in the lobby, either they didn't talk to PICO or the bulbs they put in weren't part of PICO's program, so they didn't get a rebate. So I'm encouraging Bob and I encourage Steve to embrace PICO's problem. I know Ruth, when stadium lights came, the lighting expert came to the stadium for Villanova, I heard him say it would reduce the electric bill by 72%.
Yeah.
Wow.
If they switched to LED bulbs, because A, they didn't need as many,
Yes.
and B, LEDs were gonna cost a lot, but their electric energy use was gonna be 72% less. So that's something, if Ruth could ever find, I don't know, because.
Well, if you look even just if you're shopping for bulbs in the store, it'll say it's a 10 watt, it's the equivalent of 60 watt bulb, but the power usage of,
Right,
and that ratio gives you the percent less you're paying in electricity.
right.
Yeah.
I would imagine that Bob might consider putting into next year's budget some initial expenditures for energy savings. I mean, just giving how they're hemorrhaging. I mean, so I think you're right, he would probably want to wait and get a lot of feedback from the planner on, but I don't know, I don't think that we're necessarily holding him back completely from any next steps that are just no-brainers. I'm assuming, because.
Part of that is probably taking the temperature of the commissioners and what, if they're in we're all in, we just want to be told how we got to get to the goal, then
Yeah.
that's one thing. But if people start, taking exception to this or that, then,
Yeah.
we might have to be negotiating.
Right. So the next step is.
Oh, so the next step on that, well, I mean, I guess we should get some guidance from Steve on what is needed from the green team in terms of developing some sort of budget recommendation, right?
Yep. I will get to him.
Okay.
He's been, I have to say, he's been wonderful. He is fully in with this program. When I met with him to do the final bit with the RFP, he said, you've done a really good job developing this so far. Let's tweak it to where the township needed to have it tweaks. And he had some really good suggestions. He and I spent almost 2 hours here sitting, going over it beam by beam by beam. So I think that he's very much on board.
It's really great.
And that helps. Because he's key, and he did not, and I need to send it to him tomorrow, he did not know that the DVRPC has a per 2015 analysis of the energy use of the township, which I think I've sent you. It was on that zip drive for you, and he did not know, and I was a little surprised, but that's all right, I will send it to him, the heat map and everything for this building. And he was quite interested in it, but I wanted to do it after this meeting, so, because the one question he had was, how is this planner gonna find the data that you're asking for? And then he thought about it, and he said, no, keep that in, because they may have resources that we don't know about. So let it be broad, and it'll narrow down as necessary. And I thought that was excellent feedback.
And they probably have some modeling that they, can access for
They're
where
good,
they don't
they
have
will.
data.
Right.
Then I think our next topic, I'm just thinking about
Ruth and her
Ruth
7:30.
Yeah,
Right.
so, the next, area is the public outreach and education.
Before we talk about that, could we talk about developing the criteria? Because I think the criteria for evaluation, because I think we probably should at least have a couple of us get together and do a preliminary outline.
I agree with you.
And looks like a lot of us are going to be gone until
It looks like
until the 17th. It looks like a lot of us are coming back on the 17th. So we would have that week.
That's a solid week.
the week before.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you, and we could make that our next meeting and make it a real working meeting, so that we can develop criteria that we want to ask them,
Right.
but also be able to respond if they ask us a question.
Well, do we want to do a preliminary outline before we all meet?
Mhm.
Sometimes if you have 8 people, it's a little more
Yeah,
difficult
right.
to.
I think it was mentioned earlier in this meeting that we might have access to the criteria Westchester used.
Mhm.
Yes.
Maybe just as we leverage their RFP, we might
Right.
want to leverage their selection criteria.
Right.
Right.
So, so
It's easier
Ruth,
than a blank sheet of paper.
would you be up for being part of that group?
I would be, now, just, recognizing that I'm leaving on Tuesday and not back until the week of the 19th.
How about the end of that week, which is the week before the 28th, right?
Right. So, the 22nd, I wouldn't be available till 10 o'clock, and then the 23rd, I'm
Why
available
don't
all day.
why don't you come up with a couple of dates,
Okay.
send them around, and
Okay.
see who can fall into the mix, and it would be the responsibility of each person who's going to come to review the RFP and
Okay.
begin to do some homework as to what should be included.
I'm just gonna say Ruth will set up a meeting.
Yes, Ruth's gonna set up the meeting.
And any possibility we can find that criteria from Westchester?
Oh, yeah, I'll,
Yeah,
um,
circular, okay. Get us thinking.
yeah, I can
Okay.
definitely either extract them, or if there's a document that sort of lays them out, I'll send them.
Okay, great. Because even the people that can't make the meeting could
Right.
And
give input.
can throw in
Yeah.
throw in a question or a statement.
Yeah, I mean, in my business, typically selection criteria fall in like three main categories. One is what is the bidder's technical approach to solve your problem? What are the bidding as cost? And then kind of like their experience or their, which gets to risk. How confident are you that they can do your job?
Right.
So, and then within that, then there's each category there's lots of
Right.
sub questions.
Okay.
Now to public outreach. We have the two items. One is the carbon reduction flyer, the smart energy choices. And then the other is just moving ahead with developing this forum plan, the community forum idea. So, Sarah shared the suggested edits, Mary, that you sent her. Does everybody have a copy
Did I
of
send it
this?
to everybody? I hope I did.
What?
Oh, okay.
Did you send it to everybody?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't.
Well, it was this afternoon.
Yeah, it was this afternoon. It was like,
yeah, I didn't.
like around 2 o'clock. No, I mean, honestly, you may not have even.
No, it was 3:17.
You're 17?
What is Ken?
Well,
Wow.
so, I guess, I totally hear your concern, about, there's some apples and oranges and sort of like, is this per person or household? At the same time, I guess I'm wondering if it wouldn't be possible to have this thing be, that's just like a tabling tool, be pretty,
Basic.
yeah, basic, and not get too into definitions and such, which would make it pretty cumbersome. And I'm thinking that Interfaith Power and Light, they've used it for a while, and so it's had some experience.
Yeah, I was gonna say, do we have, I mean, to me it was, I read it because I was actually sitting there and thinking, all right, Mayor, what are you gonna do personally?
Yeah.
And I thought, that's a lot, is that per me, or is that
Yeah.
per household? And I thought, gee, would my savings have been different 10 years ago when my kids were still around versus,
Right.
and I thought,
Right.
maybe we need to be more clear about what the benefits are and just say, is it per person, is it per household, is it per unit? Sometimes it was pretty obvious, it was per unit, per appliance. And I don't know if we have that data, because I wasn't entirely sure,
Yeah.
where they had gotten their data from.
Well, and I
So-
have not a clue where they got their
Yeah.
data. This is something they've used for about 2 years.
And I think there are certainly rules of thumb. I mean, to your point, refrigerators vary in size,
Yeah.
or houses vary in size.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's
But-
sort of obvious from, and I thought, well, I want people to, I don't know, maybe I'm so used to working at EPA and getting challenged on everything we did, sometimes justly so, especially lately, that, you didn't want to appear to not be precise or to be too vague or whatever, because then you're accused of
Overinflating.
overstating
Yeah,
or
right.
not really, even realizing that you didn't really give some super clear data. So I'm just looking at it. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm bringing that
Right.
baggage with me. I want us to be, free from any, well, what do you mean,
Well,
that
and-
kind of thing.
Go ahead.
I'm with you on that. We don't want to be just exaggerating the issue and creating this document. How much are we able to change this and use it, and still use it? I mean,
Well,
can we
we got,
make our
changed it
own
quite a
from
bit.
this, or?
we got their template,
Yeah.
and then we mostly changed the flow of it. So, for instance, you would buy a programmable thermostat, and then you would turn it back. You wouldn't find one was 1 and one was 4. As to the amounts, that's their data.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where we fleshed it out was in the recycle, recover,
Yeah.
reuse, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
We did do that. It's
Yeah.
really meant not as a Bible, but it's like I heard you write write me today, well, I bought a really nifty rack to go on my back porch, and now I'm gonna be hanging my clothes out to
Yeah.
dry.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I was looking
Yeah.
for that, and
That's,
I do hear.
that's what we want people to do, not to be getting out their calculator and figuring out exactly.
Oh, yeah, I'm not worried about the average person. I'm worried about the cynics, the whatevers that will, I mean, I can hardly believe
We'll
they're out there, but
we'll
we will
send
try
them
to
to you.
challenge it saying, oh, this is another liberal piece of blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah. So I'm sort of, yeah, I totally get where you're coming from. The average person will say, wow, those, the numbers are meaningless anyway. 500, that's a big number. Could have been
Right.
400. They don't
Right, they
care.
are.
Right.
But just, but that jumped out at me. I thought, oh, I wonder if that's my house that's the problem, or it's me individually, or how many showers do I take a week? That kind of,
Do you
that kind of thing.
think it would work for us to have a background online document that goes into some discussion on these things, so that somewhere we could just reference it, something.
Some places we
to
have
introduction.
see blah blah for more detail.
I think
don't
that's
we?
on the back.
Yes.
Is it on the
And
bottom?
For further
and
information.
periodically within, like
And
CP
we
go that, whatever.
we added all that. None of that was in
Yeah, well, I think
the
that's a good
original
idea.
document. So it's, yes, have an energy audit, so let's give the link or the phone number. So it's not, well, yeah, sure, but I don't know how to get in
Right.
touch
Yeah.
with them.
If we don't want to get too, or don't have time, or don't have the inclination to get too precise at this stage for the purposes of this type of document, my other suggestion was just put something like estimated in front of our, where we have
Yeah.
CO2 reduction, because then
Yeah.
people kick, and it kind of takes the wind out of the sail.
Right.
Oh, you're throwing these
Right.
numbers and you're getting them out of the air. Well, we said estimated,
Let's,
We don't have time to,
let
write a
me
big
see
long.
if I
Right.
can add that. This has, I don't understand why I did this in Word.
I
And
think it looks great.
as
No,
many consecutive versions with a new name each time, it would go all the way back. And I had your markups every time I would open it.
Oh, you must have loved it when you got marked.
And then the
Here
first
she
time I
goes
put
again.
it into a PDF, it lost all format. So.
Well, the estimated, that makes perfect sense.
Yes, that's a
Yeah.
Yeah, I like
great
that.
suggestion.
And, we can probably, as part of the educational programming, come up with some sort of ranges or descriptions of how you might, look at your household compared to the average or something like
Right.
that. Where we could get into more depth than
And
we
I think
can
we
here.
could get Pico to help us with that.
Well, it would be great if we could add dollars to some of this savings. I mean,
Yeah,
it
that's-
would, it would
But
just
it
make
would be,
it make sense.
Katrina,
to me,
but how much do you pay per kilowatt hour?
I was gonna say,
Yeah.
then you start going down that path.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, I know, I can state clearly
Yeah,
that Pico is 4 cents a kilowatt hour, but part of that's coal. So I'm paying 9 cents a kilowatt hour because it's totally solar, but that's my choice. So
Right.
it's
so I
pretty
get it, I
hard
get it.
to
It's-
put dollars.
Okay.
So I guess maybe I'm sorry, go
I
ahead.
I just wonder with the introduction too, that we decided in the beginning that it wasn't going to be this is the liberals are doing this again, and, the buildup of carbon dioxide and other heat gases in the atmosphere from burning fossil fuels is overheating our planet and disrupting our climate. I mean, that just sounds really alarmist.
Well, it's time to be alarmed.
Well,
We've
it
had
is
time
for
to
us,
be
but,
alarmed.
I just think a lot of people are gonna say, oh,
I hear what you're saying, I have to think about it.
Well, we can use softer words.
I
I mean,
think
it's certainly
we
with
should use
disrupting,
softer
we could say
words.
impacting.
Yeah.
That's hard to argue with, and it's, it's fudgy enough. Overheating, maybe there's a less, that's what it is,
Well-
but.
It
I mean,
is.
as
It
a
is,
scientific
but it
matter,
just-
that's what it is. But
does-
maybe there's a different choice of words that seems
Yeah.
less, we don't want to deviate
That's
from what we're
not
trying to.
alarmist.
Okay, so we've
We
got.
want to use an accurate term that we're
Right.
trying to convey, but we.
So, do me a favor. Because might be used this coming Saturday at the Energy Expo at Penn State University, Brandywine. Send me some wordings and I will attempt to simplify it a little bit.
I think you could use it there. I think anybody who comes to the Energy Expo has
It's
bought
a
it.
self-selected audience.
Yeah, so I
Right.
think you'd
Yeah,
be
not too many of
fine.
those folks are
So,
gonna
but at
criticize.
some point before we go to Highland Avenue on the
Right.
24th of August,
Right.
Yeah, we don't wanna be a lightning rod.
let's
I
look at
mean,
how we might soften
Yeah,
it
Yeah.
a little bit.
punch up
But,
the save
yeah,
money in the
If we
process.
just took out
Yeah.
this, that
Yeah.
second
Yes,
sentence,
agreed.
Good.
we would probably.
And I'm gonna add estimated.
And again, sooner rather than later, Katrina, following up on your concern, we probably should try to get some more in the weeds type data that really
But
backs up
that
what
could
we're
go
saying.
up on a,
But that
in
can
a
go up on our
web co-
website,
a
yeah,
website.
and we don't wanna, we wanna do that sooner rather than later, so I think maybe that's where we,
And
add some of the,
in my second view of this, or third, I don't know which, the getting around, if it's at all possible, but if it's gonna make everybody crazy, you can forget about it. Make possibly 22 of not idling your car when you're, I think that's
that's
my
good.
biggest pet peeve in life, to be honest with you. Of people whose cars are running and they're sitting in a parking lot.
No, what gets me, Ruth, is the people who have the ability to start their car and warm it up in the driveway
Mhm.
before they get into it.
Yes.
That's
and I'm proud
my
of
pet
that.
peeve.
I know. Yes, that makes me crazy too.
But I drive a hybrid, so it doesn't do anything when it doesn't.
Yeah, and so if I can think of a statement, I'll share. I'll
All right.
say
I
that.
do, I like that
The
suggestion.
numbering,
Yeah.
that's fine.
I do too.
Doesn't-
All right, that's a good one.
Yeah, a lot of that goes on at SEPTA stations in the winter.
We probably don't wanna put this into this, piece, but I was listening to NPR the other day and they were talking about, so what does, 1,000 pounds of CO2 mean? And one of the things, so they said the average trip to Europe, if you fly to Europe, is 1,000 pounds of CO2, which could be responsible for melting 33 cubic feet of Arctic ice.
I agree with you. And Greenland the other day, because it's
Yeah.
been so warm, they quoted it, that they lost 61,000 swimming pools full of water every 24 hours. So of course I said, and what's the size of the swimming
Oh,
pool?
yeah.
There you go.
Oh.
Estimated.
Estimated.
So
So,
I think if we have some examples like that, it makes them
Yeah.
more real.
right, but I'm gonna say I'd like to see that as verbally spoken.
Oh,
not
yes,
down on a
absolutely.
piece of paper.
Right, yeah.
So Becca, I found out from Ian that we've recorded the meeting and Ian's going to send me the link for YouTube, and you'll be able to go to the township's website tomorrow, and you'll just plug in the link, and Becca particularly will be able to hear this whole meeting. Okay? And any
That is
prior
Becca.
meetings, this is Becca.
Yes.
So I know that.
Alex. You mean Alex?
I meant Alex.
Okay,
So,
okay.
but, you can catch up, and I know you've been away. I don't know where you've been. No, you were at Temple taking
Yeah.
a course. Right, so you'll be able to catch up as to where we've been.
That
Bye.
would be amazing.
You won't get a picture, but you'll get the verbal recording of the meeting.
Okay.
Okay? All right. So just know that we've been invited to go to table at the Highland Avenue block party on the 24th. And I know this isn't us, but we could either have a table that was 6 to 8 feet long, fully draped, or I found a shower curtain at Amazon on the Amazon Prime Day for $10. We can do what's called a banner
Mm-hmm.
and do it that way. My inclination would be to do the banner, which allows us to carry a smaller table if we need it. And it'll go from here up. Can you see it, Becca?
Yeah, I I can kind of see it.
Okay, so I'm supposed to let Jennifer know tomorrow, because the township's
Which one?
to do this,
Yeah,
which is
But you'll let her know which one.
4 feet wide, and she already has the number that we've chosen, which was 3 or 4, and we chose 3, which was blue background. And the township will make it for us, and we'll have it for the 24th.
Right.
Is that all right? This way, we can take a dowel and I can make a pocket here so that if we have a
Oh, perfect.
educational forum, we can hang it up
Perfect.
by the dowel on the front of the dais or the
Yeah.
front of the thing. It makes it more flexible. So would it be all right for me to tell Jennifer?
Yes.
And it's not costing, I think I looked it up by mistake, it's something like $180. And it's washable. It's polyester.
So, for the tabling, we would have, and I mean, that looks great, and boy, thank you, Becca, for the design. I'm excited about that.
Yes, thank you, that looks great.
And it's gonna kind of give the tabling some branding.
Mhm.
The other materials, we didn't settle on
The
necessarily all of them, but we're gonna do
Pico,
the
energy
choice.
audit, energy
Yeah.
choice. This,
Right, the
Um,
carbon footprint.
the carbon footprint. And I'm gonna meet with Reverend Howard to get a sense of the community.
I wonder whether he might be able to identify 1 or 2 people from the community who might sit at the table.
Mhm.
Good
Mhm.
idea.
Very good idea. Very
Well, and
good
we were hoping that we would be able to have some faith leadership as part of the team, but didn't have much luck recruiting. I also think it could be helpful if we were to have just some sort of a, not like, well, not a sign-up sheet, but basically to ask people how would they like to be engaged in this process? Would they like to respond to a survey? Would they like to come to a meeting? As the planning proceeds, what's their preferred way to, learn more? And then we could, if you were willing to give their contact information, we could invite them to be just part of a list that we would keep informed by, periodic updates. So, it would.
Yeah, I think getting their contact information, if they're
Yeah.
interested, is
And I know that
really great.
When I initially, Reverend Howard grew up in Garrett Hill. He and his sister were raised by George Sidnor, who used to be a policeman here, who lives on Williams. And he lives in an all-electric house in Collegeville. And he said, Sarah, I want the information to have an energy audit. So he, as a leader, is going to lead the way with this. And another woman who's a very good friend of his, Thelma Gray, lives on Garrett Avenue. And she and I were talking about it because we were talking about the block party. And she said, I will come to the block party and I will sign up to get an audit. But what I have to do is get to Steve and to this Mark Binder, who is our connection, to find out, what I'd like to find out is if we got 30 people who signed up, can we lower the cost down? And guess who's going to be at the Energy Expo on Saturday? Pico. So I will spend time to talk with them and see how we can do it. Now, Lisa is already putting it out to Ward 4 to come to this party. So it may be many more people, many more types of people than just Highland Avenue. So that's good, that's all to the good. And if you can think of anything else we can do to.
It'd be great to have something other than paper.
Yes,
Something
and that's,
that-
yeah, and I don't know
yeah.
what that is.
Well, we have, so we,
Do you have the
figured out-
boxes?
Yeah, I have the boxes. So we figured out that a pound of CO2 of gas, my husband is very accurate, so he says it's at 0 degrees centigrade and 15 millimeters of mercury or
Okay.
forget all that.
Okay.
A pound of
Okay.
CO2
Yeah.
would fill a 24-inch cube. So I went to Staples and got boxes that will come to a 24-inch cube, and so that we can say this is a pound of CO2, of gaseous CO2.
I like that.
That's
Yeah,
visual.
that's
Wow.
very good.
Visual.
And if we could think of a
Fabulous.
game, Becca, if you could, do you have any games that you can think of that might illustrate? And I do, actually, and I need to get it to you and Ally, I need to find out where I got it. I found a carbon footprint quiz for kids. How do I go to school? Do I go on a bus? Do I walk? Do I ride a bike? Does my mother take me?
Yeah.
So,
One of the things I was thinking was we could,
Right.
we did have that
So we can give
quiz.
that to people in our class.
yes.
We could ask the kids, so what will you do? I'm sorry.
You what?
But the cookies.
I
Well,
didn't hear what
She
you said.
didn't, she doesn't know of a game right off the bat, but thinks that would be useful. We might just put that out to the Ready for 100 list in case they
Right.
have some.
Oh, this is the child's one.
Is that the one? Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
So what we could do is, I also have a lot of
That's
Post-it
great.
notes. So we could, we could have them do the quiz, and then we could say, what will you do to reduce your carbon footprint?
Oh, that's a
And then
great
they can
Great
write it
idea.
on the sticky note and
Oh.
put it on the box.
Oh.
Right, good
So we'll
idea,
have a-
great,
That's a
we
good
got it.
idea.
Ruth,
Great.
Yeah.
I love it.
Brilliant.
All right. So Ruth's gonna sort of reiterate, Ruth's gonna come up with, after she gets back, she's gonna take some leadership and develop a time when we could get together to try and get some criteria
criteria, yeah.
together. But in the meantime, those of us who are in town are gonna read the RFP and come up with some ideas of what we want.
And I'll send the Westchester.
You'll send the Westchester and I will send something, but I can't remember what it was. But I've got it written down here. I will also send out a note so everybody knows when everybody's away. And Ruth Levy, for the meeting with the Earth Action Group at the high school, Ruth will be involved if possible. We're looking at her kitchen cabinets. No, we're looking at Alan. Ruth is gone.
Becca, right.
Becca.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to take care of my dog.
That's all right, that's all right. We're almost done. Anything else?
Did we want to select our next meeting time? And day?
Well, do we, other than the meeting to figure out the criteria for the pre-proposal meeting, where do we go next?
Yeah,
Um,
we need to
Considering
meet
as
before.
everybody's been away,
We'll want to meet even collectively before the 28th.
yes.
Obviously.
Right.
You'll want to meet collectively before the 28th. Okay.
This group as a whole.
Right.
That's what, yeah.
Yeah.
So since, what's today? Today is
Today's-
Tuesday.
Today's the 30th, the Tuesday.
So my memory of when people will be away, I guess I would float either the 20th or the 27th.
All right.
That's a
I'm
little
just
tight.
throwing something out there.
I'm just thinking the 27th might be a little tight if
Meeting on the
it's
28th.
the next day.
Then we go
20th.
back a week, right? So then you're saying the preceding week?
Well, I'm just thinking that it would be.
I don't
hard.
disagree with you.
Okay.
Yeah. The 26th or the week before?
Becca,
Yes.
can you be
Actually-
available the 20th or the 26th?
I just remembered I can't do the 26th.
Yeah.
That's getting close
Okay.
anyway, that's that.
I'm
20.
starting at nights.
How
How about the 20th you can do?
What time?
6:30 p.m.?
The same.
Let me just check real quick.
Okay.
I have preseason for, I have preseason in August starting the 12th from 4 to 8, almost every night. I don't have practice then, yes, I will be able. I'll be available.
Great.
And will Ally be available? Is she practicing from 4 to 8 like you are?
No, she's not. She, I don't know what she'll be doing, but she won't be with me, so she might be able to be available.
Great.
Mhm.
So we'll just say that Tuesday?
20th, easy.
The 20th.
Yeah.
6:30.
Sorry, I won't be available then. I'll be at practice.
Do you mind reaching out to Ally and see if she can make it?
Yeah, last three.
Great.
So what are we doing that night? Are we doing the
Potentially, we could,
knockout?
so we could do the projector, we could put the criteria, you know, a draft of the criteria and have a working session to
Yeah.
narrow
Alright.
down with the selection
Mhm.
criteria.
All right, all right.
Because if we don't have any other business, it's an hour and a half
Yep.
to narrow down what, you know, what the criteria should be. I think we could do some damage in an hour and a half.
Okay.
Especially if we have the Westchester as a
Yeah.
template.
You're
I'll get that right
you're
now.
gonna get that right out.
Mhm.
So that's what I would propose for an agenda item for that week.
Sounds perfect. In the meantime, I'll check with Steve about the length of interviews, blah, 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 blah. When he anticipates doing them, how many a day, all that kind of stuff.
I think we're thinking 15 to 30 minutes each.
I think
Just to
it's
throw
something.
it, just to throw something.
20.
Well, they're
Well, a
driving.
lot.
Does that
30 maybe.
20th
30.
You don't
align
need it, you don't need
with,
it.
You don't
Ruth,
have to
when you
use
were
that.
gonna do the first meeting?
Well, so, I guess we wouldn't be doing the first meeting if we were gonna try to knock it out on the 20th. The one thing we could do is that, if a smaller group of us wanna meet earlier than that, I mean, we could say we meet on the 19th, Monday the 19th, but with 3 of us getting back, from
Yeah.
a trip on the
Right.
17th,
No.
I'm not
Right.
sure I'm gonna be, back in this time zone yet.
Well, you know what you could do is just do a phone call. Or if you could do
Well,
something.
do we need it, I guess, is the question. Do we
If
need
each of
it,
us
or-
does our homework, do we need
Yeah,
it?
maybe that's the alternative, is everybody doing, and maybe a little bit of back and forth for those of us.
Yeah.
Still
Yeah, we
in
can email each
communication.
other.
Yeah,
Right,
some
yeah.
people
Yeah, I
are
mean, email
likely
still
to
works.
weigh in more than others, so that probably works.
Mhm.
Well, and we've got time to, after the 20th,
Yep.
to play with it some more.
Right,
If
yeah.
one
So
or
if
two
we need
people
one
wanna
last,
take
yeah,
it,
yeah.
um,
Because we could come up with the criteria and then ask Steve to critique it
yeah,
and
Right.
then
Yeah.
revise it.
yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that Friday or that Monday,
Yeah.
or over the
Yeah,
weekend
it
or
gives us
whatever.
plenty of
Alright.
time to do that. Okay.
All right.
Making progress.
Right.
Wow,
That's good.
absolutely.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Great.
Does that conclude the meeting?
Yes.
It does.
Okay.
move
Someone has to hit a
adjourned.
gavel. Say,
Thank you, yeah.
Thank you,
we'll
Miss
get-
Becca.
Hey, take care.
Meeting adjourned. There we go.
Keep in touch with you guys.
Okay, Ruth, you wanted
Yeah.
T-shirts and I will take some to the expo on Saturday. Which, in case anybody wants to know, is at Penn State Brandywine, which is off of
352?
452.
It's out near what?
352. It's
Yeah.
on Yearsley Road.
Used
It's
to
from
be-
noon till 4. They're gonna have a panel discussion at 1:30 in the afternoon. And the good news is, it'll be air conditioned.
Wow.
But it's noon to 4?
The expo is from noon to 4. Pico will be there, Green Mountain Energy will be there. I'm sure the little guy who has the coiled
Oh, yeah.
copper tubing, so when the hot water runs down the drain, it circles back up again. It's a way to save,
To kind of preheat your hot water.
preheat your hot water. Penn Environment is there. Tom Killian and
Chris Quinn.
Chris Quinn are the sponsors. And there'll be other environmental groups there.
Haven't decided yet. I saw the-
But
Right,
just
and-
know it's there.
For this,
Yes.
any suggestions, do you want it by a certain time? What
just
What's your
get it
timeframe?
to me, well, if this is gonna be okay for now,
Yeah.
then I need to have
Before the
time
next
to
meeting.
fiddle with it before the 24th.
Okay, well, let's
Okay,
have
so
it
let's,
ready.
yeah, maybe we should do a
Let's have it all
deadline
ready
for
by
that.
the
A week,
Next meeting.
a week, yeah,
Yeah, okay.
or 10 days. or
Okay.
whatever. And Dan's already weighed in, I'm not quite sure how, well, he must have known it because Mary sent it around, he apparently is weighing in on this flyer too.
Oh, is it?
Okay.
Okay.
So
Good.
I will attend to that when I get
Okay.
home. And now it's time to go
Edits
home and watch
by-
the
Yeah,
debate.
gotta watch the debates.
Edits by 8:20. Does it start at 9 or what the debate?
8 o'clock.
Oh, at
Oh
8
my
this time.
gosh,
It was
how
9
long?
last time.
It's 8, I just
It's
checked.
eight.
Oh, shoot, I thought it was at 9.
No.
The games begin.
Yikes.